back, you know. We're here in my apartment doing a deck profile of my agent deck. And this is it. It's not really that special. 2 Earths, obviously. 3 Venus.
This is your second time doing this deck profile.
No, it's not.
That done before?
No, you've nenever profiled agents for me ever. 3 shine balls, and don't side them out, like Dang does.
Hey.
I'm
a bad player.
I shouldn't have to explain why you shouldn't side out shine balls, but 3 Hyperion, obviously, because he's a boss, and the tour guide engine. The only reason I run Night Assailant is because I find myself summoning tour guide and wanting to summon Sangan a lot. And I don't want this tour guide to become dead. And to be honest, I don't really mind having my Sangan die to add tour guide to my hand to just go for this, just to thin out my deck. So I decided to put Night Assailant in because there was a tournament that I ended up winning, but like 3 times that day this tour guide ended up being dead because I was only running these 3. And I can side him out whenever I want to, and I do it a lot. 2 Valors, because they're good. 1 Honest. 1 Maxi. 1 Herald of Orange Light. Sometimes I kind of want to just make it 2, because I like it. 2 Thunder Kings, because he's the best first turn, like, in the game. There's no point not to run him. Kagors, 2 Tragos. I mean, everybody loves opening up with Earth and Trago. And I mean, like, I run 2 Christias, which is, like, against everything I've ever believed in, but Christia wins a lot of games, and I just always side one of them out. But if you draw 2 of them, you feel like a douchebag.
Yes.
BLS, Chaos Hexer, Monster Reborn, Mind Control, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, and 2 Soul Takers, mainly for killing Shock Masters made on the first turn, and Thunder Kings better first turn. I mean, I don't see the reason not to run this card. If you're running a deck that doesn't run traps, I think you should run Soul Taker in your main deck. That's the way I feel. I feel like you should have utility in your deck because you don't have any utility sitting in the back row, so you might as well run Soul Taker if your deck doesn't have traps. Like, no matter what, unless you're running Monster Mash, which I love. I love my deck. 2 enemy controllers because it's broken. And it leads to OTKs constantly. Like, this card is so good. Like, if I open with this card and this card and I don't get Veilored, I feel like, especially if I have him too, or of course if I have Tour Guide, there's a lot of different combinations you can open up with the OTK people. But Econ just makes everything so much better. I mean, if their only out is Trago and you're sitting with a lot of damage on the board, Econ can just get Trago out of the equation by, like, swinging with something. They drop Trago, you tribute the monster that you've attacked with, and then attack with everything else. So basically, if you have this and you have OTK, their only out is Gores, if they don't have any back rows. And then, of course, 3 MSTs, because you should run 3 MSTs. Also, if you don't run traps, you should run 3 MSTs. That's just, like, a fact. I don't run Treacherous. I don't have Treacherous. I had Treacherous.
But if you do, will you use it?
I don't know. Maybe. I definitely wouldn't take out Soul Taker or Econ. I like 2 Econs and I like 2 Soul Takers.
So, what would you take out? I have
them when I need them. I would probably just run 41 cards, because then, like, 41 cards is nothing when your deck has Tour Guide.
And
Venus.
And
Earth. Like, your deck gets thinned really quickly. Like, when I was running Monster Mash, I was running 43 cards. But then again, that had Mills, Tour Guide, Venus, Earth. So I don't know, I'd probably just make 41 cards. I never really feel bad about 41 cards. I don't even feel bad about 43 cards anymore. I used to have this big stigma about using more than 40 cards in a deck, but once you start doing it, like, once you start running, like, 43 cards, you just don't care. Like, you'll notice that your deck really doesn't become less consistent much at all. You just have the option of drawing different cards. Like, you'll see the cards that you need still, and you won't find that you see them less. But, like, your one-ofs and stuff, you'll obviously see replaced by other one-ofs that you decide to tech in, but you never really feel... I've never felt that having, like, 43 cards in a deck hurts the consistency of it that much. Especially since Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game where your deck gets thin so much constantly. And my extra deck...
How come you only use 1 Maxi? Or 1 Effect Bearer?
I use 2 Effect Bearers.
Oh, okay. What about Maxi?
I don't like Maxi.
Why?
I really just don't like it. Like,
so you prefer...
To be honest, this card, I've felt like taking out a lot. Because it's like, there are points, like, a lot of the time when I'm playing, what your opponent will do is you'll summon Venus. And what a good player will do usually is wait until you summon the second Shine Ball with your effect, so that the Max E becomes a +1. A lot of the time, like, somebody will play Max E on my first Shine Ball, and I'll just leave it there, because I really don't have any... If I summon the second Shine Ball, they already +1'd. If I go for the Gotchi, they +2'd. But if they summon it on this one, I'm just going to make the Gotchi, because there's no point in me just keeping those there, because Gotchi soaks up enough hits anyway that +1 shouldn't matter. And it gets you a free card. But that's one of the only instances where you can actually force your opponent to, make your opponent want to give you the plus. Most of the time when you chain this against your opponent, they just don't care. They'll just stop their play. And this was just a 1-for-1. It was basically like threatening roaring them or something. And I mean, that's cool and all, but the card isn't as powerful as it seems. Because a lot of the time you'll open this card and you'll be like, Max C. Like, you'll be able to go on some lineups and you'll be like, I have Max C. My life is complete. But it just isn't. I don't think this card is as good as anyone thinks. Like, anyone that thinks this card's really good is out of their mind. But it definitely is good. It's just not amazing in any sense. This card is amazing. Valor's amazing. Valor does a lot of different things. And I mean, obviously this card is amazing too. A lot of the times I thought about taking out Maxi for a second Herald, but Herald can really fuck up with your Christia. Herald can fuck Christia up a lot, and I don't like that. It can set up Christia too, but I feel like this card fucks up Christia's summoning condition more than it helps it. But that's my thoughts on Maxi. That piece of shit. I still run it though.
What do you think of this hand trap for this format? Do you think it's good now?
I'm running a trapless deck, so obviously I do kind of like hand traps.
But just like a regular deck, like lineups,
if you run
Murmels, or...
If you run traps, I don't think... If you don't run Trago and Gores, there's no point to running this card. At all. Because if I'm against windups, and they have, like, set back rows, and I heavy storm them or something, and then I summon Tour Guide and go into Leviair, remove my Venus, and summon my Hyperion. Say they chained Maxi on that Tour Guide, I'll let them draw like 5 million cards. I don't even care. Because they might run Gores, but a lot of wind-up decks have stopped running Gores. And Maxi is basically them just saying, like, this is my out. Kill me. Like, if you don't run Trago and Gores, Maxi's pretty stupid. Because what are you going to draw into if your opponent's OTKing you? It can be okay, but to be honest, if I'm running traps, I'm never going to main deck this. And I would think about side decking. I'm main decking these, but definitely these would be in the side deck. These should be in your side deck at least, no matter what. You should have access to Valors. Just like every single deck in the game should have access to MST. If you don't run MST in your main deck, you should have 3 in your side deck.
Alright, that's your deck.
Hand traps are good. They are. But only in... If you look at them outside of a vacuum, you have to look at them from all aspects of the game. 1 Phoenix, 1 Dark Mist who puts in more work than... To be honest, people usually Valor him, or they like I'll enter my battle phase and they'll Valor him, or I'll summon him and they'll warning him for some reason. People hate when this guy comes out, I don't know why. I've only ever summoned him and been able to actually attack somebody with him once in any match ever. He's gotten warninged so many times, I can't even count. I don't know why. People just like warning him. 2 Gotchis, and I think that all agents' decks should run 2 Gotchis. Because, I mean, look at... You have so much access to it. Like, you have your Earth. You obviously have your 3 Shine Balls. But you also have your Monster Reborn, which is there. I mean, you have Mind Control. I don't know how you'd ever do that, though. You also have Trago. I mean, I love... setting up 2 Gotchis. If you set up 2 Gotchis, you can usually sit behind them for a really long time, and having 2 Gotchis on the field with anything usually forces your opponent to make really stupid plays, like go into really dumb shit that they wouldn't have wanted to go into before just to get those Gotchis off the field because they're so goddamn annoying. So I think every agent deck should run 2 Gotchis. I don't see any point not to. Since, I mean, you could run stuff like Sun Dragon Overlord of Heliopolis, so that you could overlay your Hyperions or your Christias or mind-controlled Graphas, but I don't see the point of that. Or Gustav Max. I mean, you could run him too, but I also don't see the point in him. Tempo, Zen Mines, Leviathan, and Levier. The rank 3s that every deck runs if you run rank 3s. An Armory Arm, a Catastor, for OTKing people, obviously. A Gaia Dragon Knight thing. A Black Rose, a Stardust, and a Scrap Dragon. I have a Chimera Tech in here right now, I don't even know why. But I think I would probably replace it with Utopia just because of mind control. Just so I have access to rank 4, because rank 4s are very easy to make. So that's debatable. That's a token. For the Gores. And I don't even know what's worth. There's no point in showing somebody your side deck. No deck profile should ever include a side deck, unless it was from a YCS just for, like, learning's sake. But side decks should change depending on what tournament you're going to. That's a joke. That was in there just to be funny, to show that I could do things with that in my side deck. Like, depending on where you are, your side deck should change, which I guess is why I guess I'll show you this to you, just to explain. I played at a tournament a Friday ago where there were 6 Sams, and I beat the 6 Sam people in the final round, and I sided those in just because there were 6 Sams.
Right type, not right type, not right type.
No matter where you go, there's
a misprint,
dragons.
people.
So
Misprint.
I always have those in, because there's always Chaos Dragons. He's just there because I got gamed by him, actually, at a regional. He gave my opponent game because I was running Monster Mash. And since then, I've gained a lot more respect for him. To be honest, though, no matter what, I'll always side these. No matter where I'm going, I'll always side these. Just in case your opponent's dumb enough to take MST out of their deck, it gives you so much power having a Torrential in your Agent deck. Especially when if your opponent takes out your MSTs and you have these in your deck, I mean, these are a god. No outs to Torrential, like, that's hilarious. Cyber Dragon's just in there because I don't know, he's just good. The local that I went to that I changed up my side deck with, like, these cards, I only knew what 3 people were running. I knew that somebody was running Dark World, so that went in. Obviously, he helps there. And somebody was running Insector, so I put this in because I didn't have any spare Veilers. I knew somebody was running 6 Sams, so I put those in.
And what about those 3?
What, Wing Karibo?
And
Electric Viruses, they're just usually in my extra deck because I always expect somebody to be running Chaos Dragon somewhere.
Oh, Machine Gun.
Yeah, or Machina. Or Yugioh. And since agents can OTK so easily, I mean, I don't think this card's really that good in your deck if you don't have the ability to OTK your opponent. Because, I mean, taking control of, like, Pulsar or something isn't that big of a deal if you're just going to, like, swing for a lot of damage and then just pass to your opponent because they can probably blow your face off next turn. But if it's going to give you OTK, it's worth having. And that's my Wing Karibo.
Just as your token?
No, it's Wing Karibo. It's in my side deck. It's first edition Ultimate, and I sided it because I was going through my collection, and they're like, what is that? And I was like, it's Wing Karibo. He's first edition Ultimate. And I was like, you know what, I'll just put him in my side deck, because I was making my side deck at the time. And I sided him against Insectors because they can't OTK me if I set him. If he gets destroyed by anything, I can't take any damage. And I did end up beating Insectors at that tournament, and I would say that Insectors is the worst matchup ever for agents. Well, if you run, like, old school agents, aka what people call Simon He agents now. Simon He, no offense against him. He's a good player. Like, I mean, this deck, this is how agents were running.
So what's the OTK?
There's a million OTKs.
There's a lot of OTKs you did against me today and a couple of times.
But, like, it depends. Most of the OTKs depend on what your opponent has on the field because of enemy controller.
Right. But, so what's the one that you did today?
What one? Are you just talking about, like, the normal OTK in case nobody knows what the normal OTK is?
If you say...
You don't know what the normal OTK is. You need this in hand, and this in hand. And your opponent needs to have nothing. Well, not nothing, like, but your opponent basically needs to have no outs. Like, if your opponent has a Veiler in hand, it sucks. But, say you have Heavy Storm or you have MST. And, say your opponent sets 2 cards. Like, I'd go for the OTK if this would happen. Say my opponent started off by setting 2 cards. And then they had a monster of some kind. Anything. Anything that's not Thunder King. Because Thunder King throws like a huge wrench into everything, and then you need to Soul Taker him or something. But this is what your opponent has. and you play an MST. Let's say you don't have Heavy Storm, and you MST this card. And say this card happened to be Solemn Warning. I imagine that this card doesn't serve the same purpose as Solemn Warning, or else they wouldn't have set it along with the Solemn Warning because that would have been redundant. And then if they get Heavy Stormed, then it kind of sucks because you lost options. So what I'd assume that this set card is something like a D-Prison, a Starlight Road maybe, just because they were trying to get a really soft bluffed Starlight Road, or an MST, or just any number of dead cards. Because starting off with 2 cards, a lot of people are afraid of Heavy Storm. I don't know why. You shouldn't always be afraid of Heavy Storm. But then I would proceed to OTK. So this is my opponent's field. We're just going to assume that card's dead. Or we'll assume it's a Mirror Force. Who knows? And then what we'll do is we'll summon Tour Guide. Summon Tour Guide first because we're scouting for a Veiler. They don't have Veiler. You summon your Tour Guide.
Or Night Assailant.
Or Night Assailant, but, I mean, you're going for an OTK, you might as well summon your Tour Guide. Because you're just going to do it to overlay, like, no matter what. Summon your Leviair. You remove and play your Venus from your hand to summon your Hyperion, activate his effect, summon your Venus, activate your Venus' effect 3 times.
Why 3, not 2?
Because you're going for an OTK.
Okay.
If you're going for an OTK, you should just put everything in, no matter what. I mean, I guess unless, like, your opponent has Guaiba in their deck and you're aware that they have Guaiba in their deck.
I mean, if you play against Dino Rabbit, then yeah.
But then again, they could just beat over Venus anyway, so it doesn't really fucking matter.
I mean, this is not OTK, so it doesn't really matter much.
Alright.
Unless...
Now.
Just
after that. I mean, obviously you have to summon Phoenix before you summon your 3rd Shine Block, because you wouldn't have had room. Alright, so let's assume... Right here, on board... Activate Phoenix's effect to make Leviair attack twice. That's 36, 41, 51, 57, 77, 8,400, 9,900. If your opponent's monster is not higher than 1,900, then you can blow up this back row and just run it in through everything, and you'll kill them. If your opponent is over 1,900, you're going to have to activate Hyperion's effect to destroy the monster instead.
And pray to God that's not
Mirror Force.
Mirror Force.
Pray to God that that's not Mirror Force or something. But that's an OTK. It happens a lot more than you'd think, because the deck, a lot of the things are searchable. And on top of that, there are other ways to access OTKs because of cards like Enemy Controller.
What can you do with Econ?
I mean, like, all you have to do is you have a Venus, Chime Balls in deck, and a Hyperion.
Alright, so
with an Econ.
Okay, so it's...
I mean, best case scenario, you have Earth and Graveyard. Which isn't that hard. I mean, like, summon Earth. Say you start off with these, summon Earth, she dies. Summon your Venus, obviously. You summon your balls out. Get all your balls. Your boys come to play. They're like, balls. Overlay. Phoenix. Summon Hyperion. Econ their monster. I mean, you have 4,600, 6,600, 7,300. As long as your opponent's monster has 700 attack, they're dead. It's simple. There's just a lot of ways to kill there's a lot of ways to play agents very aggressively. But you don't need to play them aggressively, you just have to understand that you always have the option to OTK them. And I like running Econ also because of Sangan. I mean, everybody loves Sangan Econ.
You think you would use 3 Econ, or 2 is good enough?
2's good enough. 2's good enough because the only thing I can see taking out for a 3rd Econ is Soul Taker, and I love Soul Taker. That card is awesome. But a good thing, okay, so on the Friday that I played, where I changed my side deck up, I was against Insectors. He started off by summoning Sangan and setting like 3 back rows. He had a bunch of back rows, that's all I know. So I decided I would try and bait some back rows out. I didn't know what he had set. I could assume that a lot of them were Call of the Haunted or something. So I summoned this Tour Guide, and he didn't Veiler it. So I was like, okay, I'll summon Sangan. And I entered battle phase and declared an attack on his Sangan, with my Sangan. And he didn't want my Sangan to get its search off, so he chained his Dimensional Prison, and I chained Enemy Controller, tribute my Sangan, to take control of his Sangan, to add Earth to my deck, swung in for 2,000, and then overlaid for Zen Mines, with a Veiler in my hand, and that basically won me the game against Insectors, game 1. Because it was a very killer play because he started off with a Sangan, and I think it was 4 back rows, which showed that he needed to dig into his deck. And now his Sangan was caught under my Zen Mines, and it stayed there for a really long time. And I just started ramping up advantage with my Earth, and then I later went into my Venus, and things just went bad from there. And it's all thanks to Econ.
What was his face down? Do you know?
He had 2 Call of the Haunteds, and he had... Those 2 Call of the Haunteds, a Threatening Roar, that he didn't use it on my battle phase, obviously, because he expected to deprison my Sangan, and then he had a deprison.
So he didn't deprison his old Sangan?
He tried to use it on my Sangan.
Oh, that's what I did.
Yeah. And I tributed it.
Right.
And things just went downhill from there. I mean, because this card is so versatile, you can do it, like, it's not just for OTKing. A lot of the time I just use it as a, like, my opponent's at like 4,000 life points, and I just use it to kill them from there. Because they have like a big monster on the field. Or they don't have a big monster, and I just summon a big monster and take their monster with like pathetic attack points, but it makes up for the difference, and I just win for game. Because, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people... I had somebody ask me once why I run 3 Venuses. He was like, after you summon your Shine Balls, doesn't Venus become dead? But no monster's actually dead in this deck ever. Like, a lot of the time you'll end up killing people with just your monsters like this and never summoning your boss monsters. Mainly just because these monsters lead into so many different plays. But a lot of the time I'll use my Venuses and stuff later in the game for econing. Like, I can use my Venuses for econing, I can use my Shine Balls for econing. I can use Sangan, obviously, who's best case scenario. I mean, no card in this deck is ever really that dead unless your opponent puts you in a really bad position. And that's what I like about this deck. Is that it doesn't need back rows. It's always been that way. Agents have never needed back rows, really. I mean, the OCG ran back rows a lot, but over in America, like with Nicky LaSalle when he first topped with them against Billy Break, he didn't run any back rows. And that's basically what the deck is. Like, this time he agents this agent deck. They're basically like Nicky LaSalle's deck. Kind of reborn. Like, they're the same idea. He ran the Tragos, he ran the tour guides. We just have less of them.
Alright, anything else? Last comment or anything?
I guess people should think more heavily on this card. Because, like, just today, somebody posted on the Yu-Gi-Oh group that Dang and here and I are part of with an Insector deck, and he didn't have Gores in his deck, and he had a bunch of back rows. That's why he wasn't running Gores, which isn't that bad of an idea. I don't think you need to run Gores and Insectors, especially since you have access to so many traps, but he was running 2 Maxis in his deck, and I assume the reason that people just choose to run this card because windups exist. But if you can't really draw into anything good, it's not that great. And it's definitely not main deckable. Like, it doesn't need to be main decked in anything. And when it comes to the main deck discussion, I still definitely think Valor's just a better card. Valor's too good. It's just a very, very good card. It's very versatile. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It's kind of like why Econ's a good card. It can do so many things. That's why, what's it called? Forbidden Lands, Save Zone. That's why those cards are good, because they can just do amazing things. But it's a fucking tuner. It's a tuner. This can make Gotcha, though. Always a great thing. So yeah, Max C. Don't worship it.
Alright.